We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita.
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast Backstage episode. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. Good to see everybody and for you to see and hear us. It's always fun to get together.
Absolutely.
We've been talking to some great folks lately.
We really have. We've been having such great guests. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And, having Harbinger Theater sponsor as well has been great. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check out some of their plays, please check them out, jump online, take a look, see. We're doing some very interesting and new work.
Yes. Next week's episode, we just talked to the playwright of their next play. So it's really fantastic. So make sure you check out next week's episode and check out their play, Destroying David.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's just talk one moment. Okay, I know it's not theater per se, but it was theater in the most crazy way. We got to talk about the slap heard around the world.
Yeah, and the Oscars in general, because that was our last episode. We talked to Action Jackson, about the Oscars.
Jackson Murphy.
So they've happened.
Yeah, and now Jada Pinkett Smith is calling for reconciliation and love, and I don't know, Ellen. I just want to bring one thing up and see how this lands with you. It was an article that came out that I read in the Washington Post. You may have seen it. And, like chivalry gone wrong. But one of the actors, and of course, I don't have that in front of me, said that, sometimes when you come off of production, a play, a movie, from performing a role that's very intense, and Will Smith had just been consumed with playing, Venus and Serena's William's father, Richard, that it takes time to unravel that, unburden it, because it is, you take on, and burden's not always a negative thing, it's this weight, and that maybe he really hadn't transitioned out of the role fully and back into himself. How does that land with you?
I can see a little argument for it. I mean, I know personally I've done shows, like really heavy-handed shows, and just feeling mentally drained, for like the week after the show closed, and, feeling depression because of my character going through all this stuff. And it takes a while to get back to Ellen. So, I mean, I can see a little bit of that argument. But I don't know. It's hard to, it's a really complicated matter. And really personally, I think both of them, I think Chris Rock and Will Smith were in the wrong. And it kind of goes back to what I said about the Oscars in general. It's turned into this, we got to entertain. And a lot of the comedy is turned into roasting comedy, which I'm not a big fan of anyway. And I'm like, we need to get rid of it. We're here to celebrate artists. That's what we should be doing.
Right. Why can't we just do that? But so much of entertainment has become mean.
Yeah.
It's just become mean, and then there are some who are saying, look, Don Rickles could never have survived in this environment. It was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
If he was a comedian of his ilk was around today, it might look and sound very different.
Yes. Yeah.
Just so much anger.
Mm-hmm.
And hitting is never the answer.
No, yeah.
It was hard. It was very, you'll laugh. So we were watching and I kept dozing, and I wake up at one point and I say to a friend, we're watching it, they go, did I miss anything? He looks at me and goes, you miss anything, because it's the most amazing thing. And we've been talking about it ever since. It was very troubling.
Yeah. And it's, it's a shame, because exactly what I kind of predicted would happened, is that, there were so many landmark things that happen, the second deaf actor winning, the first queer Latina
Performance.
actress coming forward
Ariana
and
DeBose, yeah.
accepting her speech. Great LGBTQ acceptance speech by Jessica Chastain,
Right.
and then Coda winning, celebrating all those deaf. I mean, so many great things happened in that night, and it all got overshadowed by that confrontation.
And the numbers were actually up. Viewership was up.
Mm.
We had talked about that also. You know, what could they do? Well, maybe the preamble to it was everyone saying, Wanda Sykes at first came out and said, you know, she's going to have a lot of fun here, maybe take some shots. And then as the weeks in advance, you know, narrowed down to D-Day, she was like, no, we're going to have fun. We're going to celebrate. You know, can we just celebrate? And maybe that attracted folks, you know, the ephemeral. And then you're right. It all became the slap heard around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And let's hope everyone gets on and heals and gets on.
Yeah, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly.
Oh, so we had a question for this week.
Yes, and it's very timely because Coda winning, which I was ecstatic about. That was my personal favorite by far of everything nominated, and I couldn't believe it won. But I heard that there's talks of it turning into a stage musical. So we'll keep you updated with more information on that, because I think that would be amazing.
And the question was, what are the most successful play, musical, turn movie, and vice versa, and why? Which ones don't work well? Which ones haven't been made that should? Was the question.
So we had Ian said, Little Shop of Horrors must be a contender. I think the Sinatra Guys and Dolls was successful back in the day. Rocky Horror has to be on the list. And, you know, it's interesting. I was working the other day and I came downstairs and my husband had Little Shop of Horrors on the TV, which is very random for him. And our daughter's sitting there listening to the Dentist song. and you know, and I told him the story of how the movie originally was filmed with the stage ending of Audrey being eaten by the plant, Seymour trying to kill Audrey too, and getting eaten himself, and then the plants getting sent around the world. And the test audience hated it so much that they went back and refilmed the entire ending to have a happier ending where Seymour and Audrey are together. And I thought that was really interesting that the play audience would be okay with the very dark ending, but a movie audience was not having it.
You know, movies for so long, when you think about the golden age, it was all about, and look, there were little morality plays in their own way, but about the happy ending, that if you took the correct road, all would work out. Theater has, you go back to Shakespeare, theater's been dark. You know, it's just two different zeitgeists. That's probably why. And I just, you know, you mentioned the Dentist song. I just have to tip my hat to the recent production up at the Fort Salem Theater, because the Dentist was, I can't think of his name, but he was wonderful. You know, he played, you know, a slew of roles, but his dentist was just off the charts.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Evan says the Glenn Ross film adaptation has an amazing all-star cast. Will always be near the top of any play to film list. I'm gonna agree with him. West Side Story, 1961, such a well-made film. Robert Wise as director was a savvy choice given his tough, gritty background in filmmaking. And then caught a review leading up to the Oscars. Did we really need another remake? And the answer was no. However, you know, we didn't, but it was fun and beautiful to see. Fiddler on the Roof may be the best film without a single star in the cast. Sleuth 72 features Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine at the very top of their game. 1776 has some low-key great lighting and direction. It's an interesting list. Few Good Men is endlessly watchable. And let's not forget, Casablanca is technically an adaptation of a play.
I didn't know that.
Me neither. And that is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's everything about it. It's beautifully the cinematography and the performances.
Oh, it's funny because Sleuth is one of my favorite movies. And I didn't realize it was a play until it came to the area. And I saw it and I was so disappointed in the play because I loved Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine so much in that movie.
And sometimes, the movies are able to do, to 360 an environment in a way that you can't on stage. Which is its own, the stage requires the audience, I think, to participate more.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
Because of that.
Yeah. I mean, you're restricted to your set. You're restricted to your lighting. There's so many restrictions. Steve says, I think the Rocky Horror Show doesn't see an ounce of lasting success without the movie. Fiddler on the Roof, I feel, is the best movie adaptation of a musical. And that is interesting. I mean, the movie of Rocky Horror is such a cult following that would anyone know the original musical had it not been for that movie?
Right. Da, 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 da. No. I saw it in New York City at the Waverly back in the day, and everybody threw toast, and had the hats and the rain, and it was happening.
I convinced my mom to go see it on Broadway, and she was like, "Why are we seeing this?" But she had a blast.
Kelly says there's a lot of stage to screen transfers, but I'm always impressed with screen to stage. Legally Blonde went from movie to musical flawlessly. Additionally, the musical changed the narrative slightly and made it even more of an empowering moment for Elle on her own accord, not just because of Emmett. Waitress is another movie to musical transfer that I absolutely love.
Yeah. David says, I think a movie that should be turned to stage is Nightmare Before Christmas. Not sure why it hasn't been done yet, but I feel like the set design and the costumes would be absolutely incredible. And I think David's onto something here. I was actually talking to a friend the other day about Disney movies that haven't made it to the stage yet. And it's like, why isn't there a Toy Story? Why isn't there a Tangled? I'm
going to bet that it has to do with money, rights and money.
Sure.
Yeah. This one we're going to split up, okay? Because Heather Liz wrote a lot. She had a lot to say, okay? Dirty Rotten Scoundrels became better when it became a stage musical. The premise is so silly to start with that the musical comedy was just the perfect natural enhancement.
And I agree, the musical is amazing, but I also think that movie's amazing. That's one, like Legally Blonde. I think they both work beautifully. Then she said, I think the original West Side Story film actually elevated the original stage play with the reordering of certain numbers and eliminating the dream ballet. And now this latest version is truly a masterpiece. And I'm going to agree with her fully there. I grew up on the original West Side Story movie. I saw it on stage, and it was shocking to see it how it originally was done because of the placement of the songs Cool and Officer Crumpkey. Because Riff and Bernardo are killed, and the next song is Officer Crumpkey, which is the goofiest song in the world.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think the film did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Reordering. Let's see, I'll do the rest of this paragraph. The producers, and it is an interesting one for this too. The original film is funny, but the stage production is one of the best musical comedies ever, and it brilliantly takes everything to that next level of hilarity. But then when they tried to make that musical into a film, it didn't work. That larger than life theatricality that helped make it a success on stage is exactly what hurt it when returning to film.
Because you needed the stage for it. That's where it's set, She also says, I think one of the worst stage to screens was South Pacific. The original film is just awful and boring, but the stage production, when done right, is probably Rodgers and Hammerstein's best work. The film of Carousel is also pretty awful, mostly because of story points that had to be removed because of censors.
Interesting.
And what's interesting also is John agrees about South Pacific. I think the film version of South Pacific also suffered because they chose to try out their horribly failed color wash technique. And as far as I know, the technique was never used again, and in my opinion, contributed greatly to ruining the film.
Interesting. Jeremy says, I think Steel Magnolias does a great job of staying true to the source material and expanding the male-female relationships that we don't see in the stage play. And also Doubt is amazing.
And
so what
I'm
do you
going
think? Because we haven't announced you on the podcast yet.
So I'm playing Malin in Steel Magnolias, April 21, 22, 23 at the Fort Salem Theater. And the cast is spectacular. I love all these women already. Jeremy is doing our costumes.
Oh.
So, they're going to be off the hook. And one of the gal who plays Iris, who plays my daughter, who plays Shelby, played young me, if you will, 14 years ago on the Fort Salem stage in a show that we did with the Singing Anchors. That Jay Kerr had written a role for two young women and a young man, kind of like the younger versions of Jerry Gretzinger, Jessica Layton, and myself, and Iris was one of them. So to bring us all back together, it's great. And I agree with Jeremy. They both stand on their own.
Yeah.
Each one bringing something else to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So buy your tickets soon. They're going fast.
Let's see. Patrick, do you want to do Patrick?
Sure. I love that Ivo Van Hove did what he did with Network on Stage. Things you might argue work against theater's power, a dozen screens, relentless activity, a scene staged outside the theater only reinforced for me the corrosive power of the medium, which was the topic and the primacy of the stage where it triumphed. Once, although it started as a movie, I feel the story and the subject matter is such a beautiful fit on stage that the movie looks to me like a bad adaptation of a musical now, even though it came first. I'm gonna have to pull the movie. No, I'm sorry. See the stage. I love the movie.
Yeah.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. The Howard Beale character. Interesting.
Yeah. Let's see. Matt says, I 100% agree with the previous post of Legally Blonde and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. The score really makes it different from the movie. A guilty pleasure is the Footloose musical. And the flip side, Closer didn't really translate that well into movie. It was too close to the play script, so it came off a little off. The Prom had so much promise as a movie, had a perfect cast, but the directing and cinematography really messed with the fun choreography and musical numbers. Interesting. Yeah. I did prefer The Prom on stage a little more than the movie. Yeah.
You're gonna. Go ahead. I've got two. Go ahead.
Other what?
I have two that aren't on this list.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to do Alex?
Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Alex says, okay, well, obviously there's a bajillion great adaptations out there, many of which have already been mentioned. But for me, there are some things that always work remarkably well in Neil Simon movies adapted from his plays. For one, he wrote the screenplays for each one. That's hugely important, I think, It's still his. And because of this, the changes made usually work amazingly. The best example, I think, is Lost in Yonkers. In this play, Bella talks a few times about a man she has met recently named Johnny and how she thinks she is in love with him. In the movie, Neil actually added scenes between Johnny and Bella, and they added so much depth to Bella. It doesn't hurt that Johnny was brilliantly played by David. I don't know this actor.
Strathairn.
I gotta check out.
You've seen him a million times.
Oh yeah, he's one of those actors.
dark hair. Now he's a little gray, aquiline nose, good cheekbones. He's played good guy and bad guy.
Oh,
that actually reminds me of an old date, but anyway.
I'm gonna IMDb him right after this. It should be added, I think, that a great movie adaptation of a play or musical will often be what survives in most people's memories. I think of those unlucky souls who have never seen live theater, yet somehow still know every single lyric to the movie Grease.
Better than nothing, right?
Yeah. And I will say, Grease is another one. When I saw the stage play, I thought, ooh, this play is not that good. But the movie, I think,
and it's funny, I knew the play first.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's funny to me, there was more of an innocence about the play.
Interesting.
That when movies made, there's a little bit less of the, I don't know enough about the world in these people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Listen, there are things about the movie Rent that I like. This is one of them that I like better than the play.
Oh.
I think that the movie found more joy and mirth.
Oh.
The play was so wrapped up in the German strang of it, and I saw the original cast, and then, you can sing, I can sing louder. And, it was a change, a sea change in theater, live theater. But the movie just was more fun loving.
Yeah.
And that for me in the play, the fun was, and look, I understand, I lived through that era.
Yeah.
But you still have to find some fun.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought the movie did a better job of it. There, I put it out there. Chris says, although there's plenty of argument about so much of what is missing from the stage musical cabaret in the movie, I feel like we would have missed out on something terrific if somehow Bob Fosse didn't work his magic all over that film.
Again, right? Like how many people would know Bob Fosse's work if it wasn't for it being on screen?
Right. And then this is one where there's a darkness that is in the stage version that you don't really see. It's in the movie. It's about Liza. It's about Liza. Yeah. Yeah. Who heart, when we saw her at the Oscars.
Yes.
Yeah, but absolutely. Big props to Lady Gaga.
Yes. And I've seen a lot of people say, let's stop talking about the slap heard around the world. Let's talk about Lady Gaga's support of Liza Minnelli at the end.
Yeah. Whatever you want to say about Lady Gaga, she is a lady, very big heart. And boy, wouldn't you want her in your family?
Oh, yeah.
Right? She took good care of Liza.
Yes, she did. Let's see. Don says, I think the musical version of Victor Victoria is a good adaptation of a movie.
Rob says The Sound of Music was nominated for 10 Oscars and won 5, including Best Picture and Director. Shot on location in Austria, it was a visually stunning film that brought a legendary stage musical to a new level. Yeah,
and this is one that I argue the movie brought it to a whole new level. I've seen so many stage stage productions of Sound of Music, and everyone just feels like it drags. And the set changes are always seem to take forever. Right. There's so many of them. Yeah. And you don't get the scale of, the Von Trapp family escaping. I mean, I saw a production where they didn't have much budget for a set, obviously, because when they went to hide from all the Nazis, the entire Von Trapp family tried to hide behind this tiny little desk, and it just visually did not work, So
you need to see the hills alive, okay?
You do. You need to see Julie Andrews spinning around up there.
I'm with you.
Tony, let's split this one up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So Tony said, I have to confess, I found the 61 West Side Story so perfect in every way that I can't help but feel like a remake was unnecessary. So I've yet to see the new film. The original is successful because it manages to somehow bring all the energy of live musical performance to the small screen in a way that never feels small.
And to answer the other half of the question, I say that scale is also the reason that some film adaptations just don't work. The size of the medium is simply too limited to capture what's possible with a live performance. Interesting. In case in point, the 2017 film version of a show that's particularly near and dear to me at the moment, because he is directing and producing it, directing, Marjorie Prime. The play's examination of humanity lost when replaced by AI can easily be seen as a wake-up call, and yet the small film never really rises above the level of a yawn. I didn't see the film. I did see the production in New York City. And again, it was in a smaller, I can see it. It's 42nd down. Come on, Benita. Playwrights Horizon, I think, is where we saw it. And it's the theater is intimate. So you feel part of the action. You become more invested in it. So I'm going to agree with Tony on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw it at Schenectady Civic, the one that Tony directed, and I was 3 rows from the front, and it was very impactful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And bring it home with Rob.
Yeah, Rob says Amadeus, amazing on Broadway, amazing on film. I always preferred Salieri confessing to the audience than a priest, which is what I think he does in the movie. And we do have one more. My mom sent me this very long email. I love her, about all her thoughts on this topic. So I've tried to trim it down a bit. Let me give you some of the highlights.
But you can't ignore Mom, okay?
Can't ignore Mom, exactly. And these are a lot of my own thoughts too. We agree on a lot of this. So she says, as far as screen to stage, I usually wish that Broadway would create something new rather than trying to take the safer route of staging a successful movie. And we've talked about this before, Benita. I think, you know, trying to get the audience in, right? A lot of times is why people are doing that. But I think there's been some successful transfers. I love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and The Wedding Singer. That was one of mine, I think is very successful as a musical. There's been some that weren't as successful, including, this is her opinion and my opinion, The Producers. I know it's held in huge esteem and won the most Tony Awards of anything ever, but
you like the movie better.
Man, I love the original movie. I mean, Zero Mostel, Gene Wilder.
Yes.
And the musical took out the character, one of the big characters that I felt like really hurt the musical, that they took that whole character out, the character of LSD. And I think he's amazing in the movie. And I think it worked better to explain why the musical of Springtime for Hitler becomes a success, because that actor is linked to it. So there are a lot of issues. And Matthew Broderick is not Gene Wilder. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. And Zero Mostel, you know.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Nathan Lane's great, but he's not Zero Mostel.
Which is interesting. Nobody talked about if anything happened on the way to the forum.
Oh, right. Yeah. Which, funny enough, even though it's Zero, I felt like the stage works better than the movie. I know my brother disagrees on that one, but
but the running around the 7 hills, come on, you don't get that on the stage.
True. The mayhem, because there's like a chariot race in the movie, I think.
Yes.
Some others she didn't like was Ghost, and I saw that with her. That was pretty rough. Lord of the Rings, the musical. Yes, it does exist. I don't know if it made it to the USA, but I saw it on the West End. And then there's some less than successful transfers from stage to screen. A Little Night Music with Elizabeth Taylor as Desiree. The last 5 years, the movie loses the uniqueness of the show's original staging. And the 2022 Cyrano, which we talked a little bit about with Jackson, Peter Dinklage is wonderful, but the music is the wrong genre. Plus, it made some cuts to the script. And I'll also say that Les Mis and Sweeney Todd lost a lot of impact when put on screen.
Les Mis, I've heard from many, was more accessible on screen than on stage. I've had this conversation with friends.
Accessible and like they connected with it more, or?
Yes, yeah. Connected with it more on the screen than they did on stage. And again, perhaps because of the visual, the sweeping nature. So it becomes the visual rather than, and that visceral, rather than the emotional impact of the story being told on stage. I can see it both ways. I love the stage production. I also happen to have liked the movie.
Interesting. Well, but adding on to that, the Sweeney Todd is my favorite musical of all time. And for me, that was a big letdown as a movie. They didn't find the humor. And there's so much humor in that show. It's dark humor, but I felt like it was just drained out of the movie.
Yes, it was just about the dark.
Yeah.
I know. And that's something we talk about in this, is the finding humor, losing humor, finding sweetness, losing sweetness. That's right. The reinterpretation, what they think maybe an audience wants. And then by doing that, does it support or increase or diminish, the impact? It's interesting. Nobody talked about My Fair Lady.
Oh, yeah. Better movie, I think. What do you think?
I think so too.
Because again, it's long, it's grand, and to see like the ascot races and
Yes, exactly. It's exactly that scene, you know?
Mhm.
Move your blooming arse, you know, and all those people around her. It's
Wonderful. And one that has not been made into a movie yet that shocks me, I can't believe it hasn't happened, is Miss Saigon. I always felt that that one would translate so beautifully to film, because talking about visuals, the helicopter coming down to take the
But-
GIs out.
right. But Ellen, the helicopter coming down in the theater,
Yeah, I mean, that
the
is
impact
amazing.
of that,
Yes.
you know, so I mean, I get it, but I'm concerned actually that that scene loses the impact because
Mhm.
you're not sitting there and hearing and feeling.
Feeling the people pound against the gate, and yeah.
Right.
Good point. Good point.
So, you know, it's interesting. And, you know,
Yes.
you and I have talking about accessibility on stage for performers with physical challenges.
Mhm.
And then for Coda to win, I thought, Ellen and I are onto something there.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
really opens I think helps people reimagine the artistic abilities of everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I really hope that comes to fruition, because I would love to see Coda on stage.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fascinating.
Yeah. So I don't have a question to pitch to you right now. You know,
I'll think about it.
yeah. So you've got to keep checking our website and you know, our Facebook page, because you know we always want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Kudos to Ellen. She's got a production coming up with Albany Civic Theater in the new season.
Yes, I'm directing a production of Jump, which I'm very excited about. So it's not till February next year, but I've already got my wheels turning. I'm looking for my designers. So, hey, if you're local and you want to help design, you know, let me know.
Because you know what? It's everything theater.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. Thanks. Keep watching, keep listening, and let us know what you think about what's going on stage right now, and even what you're seeing on the screen. So keep us posted too. Be well.
See you next time, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.